Hey everyone, and welcome. This is another episode of the Sports Insiders. I am Denzel Snipes, and this is Sean Russey, the MLB NFL sports agent. Before we get started, just want to let everybody know that we are on all of the glorious platforms except Snapchat. Um, uh, we are on X, Facebook. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. X, Facebook, TikTok. TikTok is a 2-for-1 special. We have at Sideline Sports and at Sideline One Sports as well, and we are also on Instagram as well. And with that being said, Sean, how's everything going today?
No, everything's going good. How are you doing, man? And happy birthday.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I had a great birthday. I can say I did, man. It was peaceful. Little music, couple drinks. A little bit of fun. That's all I asked. Oh, and I went to a local sports bar, had some wings, just the way I wanted it.
Nice, nice.
Well, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get right into it. With the Canelo-Crawford super fight revenue, as you saw, Terrence Crawford defeated Canelo Alvarez by unanimous decision to become the undisputed champion. And with that being said, here's some of the revenue that came about after all the numbers were in. So as far as the streaming and viewership, Netflix reported a 41.1 to a 41.4 million total viewers for the live broadcast. 36.6 million average live same day, 24 million peak concurrent streams. U.S. audience was 20.3 million. John, you want to elaborate on this one?
Yeah, so I mean, especially, Netflix, I believe these are about 15-20% higher than the Paul Tyson entertainment fight.
Hmm.
So I think they were kind of worried, especially not that we knew this wasn't going to be an entertainment fight, but I think they were a little worried that the numbers could be hurt by what their last product was that was really hyped like this.
Right.
And they had a whole documentary on it before the fight, so they've really done a good job of kind of becoming like a boxing platform per se in terms of like the pre-fight stuff instead of just going to HBO and listening to talking heads about the match or ESPN. They're kind of doing what WWE is doing. Let's follow these guys around for a little bit, put something up before the fight a few days and really get people interested. And I think because they're keeping it in people's faces, hence the viewership. Even that 41, we have a lot of boxing fans, but I think even boxing was shocked by that number, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. So, as you mentioned, it became Netflix's biggest men's championship bout of this year.
Yep.
This is obviously the first year they've really pushed boxing. It's ranked currently number one on Netflix in 30 countries, which means people are rewatching the fight. I mean, it was a really good fight compared to some of what we've seen lately. Um, so it is still currently ranked number one, and that's kind of amazing for an event that it's not a TV show. It's not one of their one per week new shows. So it's kind of amazing to see it holding the number one spot in 30 countries right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on to the ticket sales, live gate and attendance. The attendance was 70,482. The gate ticket revenue reported 47.2 million live gate. It set a single day Allegiant Stadium record and one of the largest live boxing gates in history. Do you believe that this was up to par, up to predictions?
I think this is one of the ones that did live up to the hype. It's usually the one thing with boxing is usually the hyped up matches for whatever reason just end up being stinkers.
Hmm.
Especially and like we saw with the was it the third or fourth matchup between the women that happened a month ago, where they
Yeah.
kind of took a different approach of kind of staying away from each other versus being aggressive.
Yeah.
That fight was not great compared to their other ones. But I think this fight really lived up to all the hype that was around it. I was
Hmm.
surprised they beat the WrestleMania gate, figuring the WrestleMania gate was 2 days.
Yeah.
So to beat the WrestleMania gate on a single day is again another amazing feat for boxing. Compared to where boxing has been the last decade.
Yeah, yeah. It's like boxing really needed the numbers. I mean, because of the rise of MMA in the last 20 something years, it's like boxing kind of took a step back. As far as the purses go, Reports indicated that Canelo's payday was in the nine-figure range, estimates of 100+ million. Crawford's guaranteed reported purse was 10 million, with potential additional earnings from streaming and back splits. More on that.
Yeah, so I mean, what popped out to me here was the difference, especially since they were not, a huge ranking gap, if according to ESPN, and the boxing, excuse me, the boxing national ranking system. The ranking gap was not huge, so you would figure the payday demand or would be, quite even. Now, there was no report of splits for Canelo, so maybe he just wanted to guarantee himself his splits early and not end up maybe at 70, 80. He's like, look, you're going to make a lot of money based on what you're doing with Netflix, based on what you're doing with this. I want the 100 up front. I won't take additional earnings after the fight.
Mm,
Whereas Crawford, I'll take my 10, and maybe he makes out more than Canelo. We'll have to wait for those official numbers to come out and see what he got from the gate and the streaming and the marketing back splits.
okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. And well, just the overall business impact about it. Massive revenue and exposure was a combination of a huge Netflix viewership and a record gate created unusually large immediate revenue streams and very high global visibility for boxing on streaming platforms. You could kind of see this coming once they announced the fight, months ago. Um, as far as platform validation goes, Netflix strong live numbers show major streaming platforms can successfully host premium boxing events. This went a whole lot better than Tyson Paul when we were stuck watching a loading screen for like most of the fight. Um, but this is likely to accelerate large streaming deals and promoter streaming negotiations and higher guarantees for elite fighters. More on that, Sean?
Yeah, so I mean, and that's why like I mentioned that number at that 41 million. It's hard to estimate what amount wasn't boxing fans, but just imagine the amount of people that may have just tuned in because of the marketing campaign Netflix put behind it, and maybe now they're interested. Even as a sports fan, I mean, myself, I'm not going to ESPN and clicking on the boxing tab. So I could, this is great exposure, and if it wasn't on Netflix, are you getting those numbers on pay per view? I don't think so.
True. No, absolutely. And let's see here. And yeah, see, marketing benchmark. It does set new benchmarks as well. And seeing as it beat WrestleMania's record, we may see like a little, kind of well, not really a tit for tat. I mean, after all, Triple H and everybody was at the fight. You know,
Yeah,
um, but no, this most definitely. Well, don't forget, WrestleMania 42 is back at Allegiant next year, so we'll see how that does because it's like okay, WrestleMania set a record, back in April, and then months later, Canelo Crawford beat it. So we'll see if WrestleMania 42, which is months from now, half a year away, is going to beat these numbers as well. But we'll move.
especially not to get too far off topic, but especially with them announcing 43 internationally, I could see them pushing some matches they were going to do for this year, hold them for the Saudi first WrestleMania ever internationally, from my recollection. Um, and that could affect the numbers of them attempting to break this record in April.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, with that being said, we're gonna move on to our MLB update. This is we're in the last leg of the regular season, y'all. It's crunch time for a lot of these teams. So we're gonna go division by division here. So in the American League East, Toronto is currently up 4-6 on New York and Boston, respectively. They have a series with the Red Sox remaining. Sean's prediction is that Toronto holds on to win the East. Sean.
Yeah. So, and before we get too far into it, I want to point out something you called out in July when we did this first update on analytics, that the Athletics would play a huge role in the playoff picture. Over the last month, the Athletics have taken 2 of 3 from the Mariners, swept the Tigers, 2 of 3 from the Red Sox, swept the Rays, or excuse me, swept the Reds. Recently took another 2 out of 3 from the Red Sox that wrapped up this afternoon. So as you predicted correctly, the Athletics are a team that have been slept on. They're actually just barely under 500 now. They won't make the playoffs, but they could be dangerous next year, and they're causing major trouble for these playoff contenders. Back to the AL East. Yeah, Toronto's just, they're really benefiting from some of these head-to-head series. New York and Boston, faced each other last time we did the 2 week update. I believe they split. Toronto has a bit of an easier schedule. They do face Boston, but Boston, like we just mentioned, lost 2 or 3 to the Athletics or just this week, which has, upped Toronto's lead on Boston now to 6.5. So I think they hold on to the East pretty easily there.
All right. And as far as the AL Central goes, the Tigers, as we predicted on the last update, have started to lose their early season pace. Look out. The Guardians were like 11 back. Now they're 4.5 back with 4 to play versus Detroit, including a game today. The Guardians will win the division by 1 game, and the Tigers will fall to Boston in the final season series. Isn't this crazy that the Detroit Tigers once held the best record in baseball and they're now in danger of missing the postseason? Sean?
Yeah, and just based on paper projections right early in the season before anybody played and everybody's 0-0, no one was like, "Oh, the Tigers are going to be gangbusters out the gate," and that's what happened. And they kind of kept that pace kind of through the All-Star break, and then it kind of started to tail off slowly. It's kind of ramped up here more now, and Cleveland's 9-1 in their last 10. They actually finished off Detroit this afternoon, so now they're 3.5 back with 3 games to play against Detroit. As we mentioned, Detroit plays Boston. Detroit lost 2 or 3 to the struggling Mets last week. Detroit and the Mets are 2 struggling teams that if they do make the postseason, they're literally limping into the postseason. But I think because you've got so much movement in the AL, which we're about to touch on the rest of that movement next, I think they're going to get, just out of the picture by some of these games that other teams have, and they just can't seem to right the ship here lately.
Okay, yeah, and well, one thing is, if it does come down to it, Detroit does currently have head-to-head tiebreakers with Houston, the Yankees, and Boston. Should that come into effect? Now on to the AL West. So the Houston Astros did beat the Texas Rangers 5-2 last night, sweeping the Rangers in the series and winning the season series 7-6. So the Silver Boot Trophy stays in Houston 9 years in a row. With that being said, Houston currently has the night off, while Seattle, I believe, will finish their series against KC tonight. Tomorrow begins and this right here may decide the AL West. Um, Houston hosts Seattle all weekend. So by the time it's game time tomorrow, Seattle could either be deadlocked with Houston or 1 full game back. The teams have flipped division lead 3 to 4 times in the last 2 weeks. Seattle will finish at home against the Dodgers. Sean's prediction is the teams will tie and play a 1 game playoff for the division, and the other will be a wild card team. Now, with that being said, before I pass it to you, Sean, is everyone still has 2 series left. As far as the Rangers and the Astros and the Mariners. Um, is it entirely possible that we see a collapse and the Rangers, like they sneeze and the Rangers somehow steal the division? It's possible, though. I think the Rangers are only they're 3 back now. You know,
Yes. So, I believe, that you're right. They're about 3 or 4 back this afternoon, but they've stayed at that mark. And, it's funny, we're gonna touch on it soon. They continue to really, when they win, they win. When they lose close. But when they win, their run differential is plus 87. If they miss the playoffs and they're well on their way to plus 100, it would be the first team to miss the playoffs in the wild card era, being a plus 100 run differential team. I mean, to take example of that, look at the Guardians. They're negative 23, and they're could steal that division from Detroit. So being plus 100 and having this near 500 record is such an outlier for what's going on right now. And because Houston and Seattle could beat each other up, if one of those teams could sweep that series, they do open the door for the Rangers to get back in the wild card hunt as well.
that is true. That is true. So your predictions, you say that the Yankees and Boston will be in as far as the wild card. The loser of the second placer will not much to really say because the Phillies have clinched. NL Central, the Brewers are up 5. Now this one here is interesting because it's like during the season the Cubs went from being like up, 6 to being down 9 to the Brewers, and then the Brewers have not been really looking like the Brewers as of late. They have a 5-game advantage with still 2 weeks left to play, and they have both the Cubs and both the Cubs and the Brewers have clinched a playoff berth. But your prediction is that the Brewers will close it out and win the division.
Yeah, I think just because the Cubs do face two teams that are going to be clawing for the wild card in the Mets and the Reds, and we'll touch on that more. But I think the Reds are going to give the Cubs a little bit of a run there in that series. I don't think they'll struggle as much with the Mets, but I don't see them sweeping the Reds. And I really think they're going to need to sweep 2 out of their 3 final series to creep up on Milwaukee for the division. Like you said, they're both in already. It'll be really interesting depending how the brackets break down and the seedings end up these last 2 weeks if we could see a Brewers Cubs NLCS.
Okay. And in the NL West, the Dodgers are currently up 2 on the Padres. They don't have any more head-to-head games. Even though the Dodgers face a 4-game series with a now surging San Francisco Giants squad, your prediction is to hold on to the division. San Diego ends up a wild card. I actually have San Diego winning the division by 1 game. Sean?
Yeah, I could see that as well. The Dodgers just seem to have that, that destiny magic again, coming up with late game stuff and coming up with few games that you figure they wouldn't pick up here and there. Um, and I think again that the schedule is going to play into this for the Padres. Um, and they just they had the Mets take 2 or 3 for them, so they're kind of stumbling a little bit, not too much. I don't feel like they're going to do like a Mets nosedive here or anything. I just don't think it's going to be enough to climb up and pass LA unless the Giants, do what the Giants sometimes do to the Dodgers and take 3 or 4 here, and then I think you're talking about a different situation. If that series is a split or 3 or 4 to LA's advantage, I don't see the Padres overtaking them.
And going moving on to the NL wild card. So as mentioned, the Cubs have clinched at worst a wild card. Now the Pods are currently up 5 on the Mets for the second spot. You got the Padres in. The Mets are up 1.5 and 2 on the Giants and the Diamondbacks and Reds. The Reds are still they're still sniffing the postseason. It's been kind of a slow climb, but anything can happen. Arizona has the Phillies, Dodgers, and Padres remaining. The Giants have the rival Dodgers, Cardinals, and then the Rockies. Giants have a bit of an easier finish here. Reds have a tough finish with the Cubs and then the Pirates to kind of ease off a little bit, but then they end with the Brewers. And the Mets they have an easiest finish. They have the Nationals. They do have the Cubs, who still may have the division to play for, as well as the Marlins. Sean?
Yeah, so I think at least in those middle series, the Mets will be facing most of the Cubs. I don't think they'll be resting too many people. The Reds may get an advantage in that last weekend series versus the Brewers, depending what the gap is. The Brewers may decide, hey, all right, we're not starting this guy because we're going to start him game 1 of the series. Um, we're going to start resting pitchers from now. We'll do a bullpen game here and there this weekend. If the Reds get in, who cares? Well, we're confident against them in a 5 or 7 game series. So I could see the Brewers easing off if it's a 4 game, gap in that final weekend where everybody's playing that Friday, Saturday, Sunday series. Like you mentioned, the Giants have kind of an easy schedule here, depending what they do with these 4 with the Dodgers. The Cardinals are in that lump, but they're the
Mm-hmm.
5th team in that lump. And I think that's where they'll remain to finish the season is the team behind all the ones we've mentioned. And finishing with the Rockies is almost a gift for the Giants. You can almost guarantee that you're going to pick up a game or 2, depending what the Mets do with the Marlins there. I feel
Okay.
like, the Giants will split with the Dodgers, like we mentioned. They'll sweep the Rockies. They'll split with St. Louis. They'll take St. Louis 2-1. I think the Mets will get swept by the Cubs because, like you said, the Cubs are still going to be fighting in the middle of that week.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Cubs they'll get that home win at Wrigley. I think the Mets will turn around and sweep the Marlins because they've had a lot of good history in Miami over the years. Surprisingly, they're worse against the Miami Marlins in their own home stadium in New York. But I think again we're going to be looking at a tied situation, and you're going to have the Mets and Giants for a one-game playoff, which the Giants will upset the Mets in New York.
All right. And you know what? We think the games are underway tonight as well. But thank everybody for tuning in to this episode of the Sports Insiders. Follow us on all of our platforms. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, and two platforms, app pages, whatever, on on TikTok. So for Sean Rossi, I am Denzel Snipes, and we will see you all next week.